They've sold over 100 million records, been around for 45 years, and yet they continue to surprise. On Friday, they released their 16th studio album, Danse Macabre, which is Halloween-themed. It's got rework into some of their classic tracks, as well as other people's, including Billie Eilish and some brand new ones too. Simon Le Bon and John Taylor joined me in a studio in central London to talk about the new album. And I have to say, it was a joy. We talked about everything from Nile Rogers to David Beckham and raising children in a blended family. Simon and John, hello to both of you.
Hello.
Hi, Nihal.
How are you both?
We're good, I think. I am.
Yeah?
How are you?
Well, I love working with you.
Oh, I like working
You
with
know,
you.
I have a really good time. It's okay, Nihal. We're just going to have a little sort of mutual respect conversation here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've had a good time. We got up very early this morning to start working on promo for our new album.
For our new album,
And it's gone really well so far,
Yeah.
I reckon.
What do you like most about working with Simon, John?
Well, he's very authentic.
I make him look very clever.
He he doesn't say things for effect.
Right.
He really thinks about them, and and he's honest. He's not looking for a
Brutally honest.
Well, no, but he's just not
Diplomatically
looking.
honest.
He doesn't think in sound bites.
Right, okay.
Oh.
And Simon, what would you say about John? What do you love working with John?
John makes me laugh. He because he says very funny things, which are true. And he's got a lovely outlook on life.
Dark humour, light humour?
All kinds of humour.
Okay.
And he really pays attention. He listens to the question and thinks, what can I say that is interesting and relevant? And I really respect that. But the funny thing about Duran is that pretty much with every question that gets asked, every person in the band has an opinion. There were times when we've been going, me. And it's sort of, and over the years, one has learned to sit back and listen to what the other person says, and accept that you might feel different about that, but actually that was their question and they've answered it, and you don't have to chip in with your addition to their answer.
Right.
I mean, it's a democracy, man. You know what I mean? It's like, how they talk
Was it
about...
always a democracy?
Yeah. But, you really have to learn. I mean, one of the things that we've learned, I think we came together in the beginning because we liked each other, but we stuck together because we respect each other. Yeah. And you can only respect people by letting them speak and letting them own. Doesn't mean they're going to feel the same way as you. I mean, we talk about that all the time, right? About what's happening out there. How can we be friends and have different views about things? It's very important, that is, I think. And we very much learn that. We've learned to let each other have our own thoughts and ideas about things.
But bands are like a presidential system because of the lead singer and the way the lead singer is elevated and pushed forward. Therefore, is it the...
I've never been allowed to believe that.
Right, okay.
I was going to say,
right,
I've not heard of this system.
Yes, I mean, you
that's
might
though.
think that's what's in
That's the
operation,
point.
but
Not
the fact
allowed
is,
to be.
you're not. Nobody. We don't allow ourselves to elevate ourselves above anybody else in the group. When it comes down to it, that is the nature of the democracy we are, and I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that we split all the everything that comes in equally. So that's the real meaning of equality in this band.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was always the philosophy from the very beginning in 1978.
And I think it's the reason why we're together. I think it's the reason why a lot of bands who've been around for a long time, like U2, was one of the reasons they're still together.
Yes, that's
because
true.
you don't build. There's no resentment builds up.
I think
because
Coldplay is like that as well, isn't it?
Are they?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
so.
think there's any band in the history of bands that sort of each member gets as much love, as they do in this band. I mean, I certainly know as a bass player. I mean, I was when somebody asks me, what I do in the band, I say bass player. And then I almost want to count, and then I almost want to add to it. But I'm more than a bass player, because I feel like more than a bass player in the band. We each make each other feel like so much more than what we are in many ways.
But can you get your head around this? As a bass player, you are such a fundamental part of the songwriting and the way the song is, because
that's why I like doing interviews with
because
him.
This validation.
every person, every person in the band puts something in, and often the less they put in, the more important it is. When I took my, rather than having like lots and lots and lots of different tracks, and it all goes to making the song great. So the song we've got, one of the songs we've got out now, it's called Danse Macabre. It's a groove song. It's very drum driven. It's driven by the rhythm, and consequently, the vocal is a spoken word vocal in the verse. It's rhythmic, and that's the most important thing about it. And that's how the drums can affect you. And then there's other tracks on the album which are very much keyboard tracks, and things like Secret October is, and Night Boat, the reworking of Night Boat. It's got Nick's done this incredible thing. He's changed the chords and he's given it a whole new kind of personality, which we've all kind of really got off on.
Yeah.
But that's such an early part of your repertoire, Night Boat. To revisit it 40 years on, what do you remember of that Simon Le Bon who sang it in 1981? Who was he?
I remember, well, he was, that guy was very much the guy who just got out of university. I was doing a course in drama and theatre arts at Birmingham, Birmingham at Edgbaston, that is. And I was that guy. And when I listened, and I listened, so when we did the updated versions of these songs for the new album, I, for one person, listened to the originals, and I listened to myself singing, and all that, and the kind of some of the things I was doing vocally.
So that's the technical singing part of it. But was there also another part of it when listened back to it about reimagining who that young man was?
Well, yes, absolutely, and the kind of the terror of that song, that kind of, because it's a song about being sort of about letting your mind run away, your imagination run down a very dark place when you're on your own and thinking, my God, the bloody water's alive, it's gonna get me. And so I got it, and that was the slightly hysterical drama queen that I was when I wrote that song.
All the anxiety.
I'm only slightly less hysterical a drama queen these days.
Do you? I can definitely sense this love that you have for each other. Do you express that through deeds more than words? Do you find it easy to express emotionally how you feel about each other?
Yeah, I think we do, actually. I think we're both pretty good at that. We're both good big huggers. We like to connect physically. We like to reassure each other that we're there for each other.
I like to stay at his houses.
Yeah, I mean,
better than hotels.
When we're on
And
stage
cheaper.
together.
Yes, of course. Do you know Michael Stipe? Michael Stipe was on the show, and he said that he, rather than use the laundry services, which are really expensive at hotels, he washes his smalls in the sink.
Yeah, well, you're not going to hear that out of us. We actually, I think the point is we wash each other's smalls in the sink.
Now that's love. Now that is love. That is an intimacy I never thought I'd hear from Duran.
I thought we weren't going to talk about that, John.
Have a think about that one.
So what about when you miss each other? How do you?
Well, I think that's part.
We always look forward to the getting back together, and that's part of what makes coming together to start a new project so exciting.
Are you whole without each other?
Yeah.
You can be,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
okay.
yeah. We've all got families.
I know that.
We've all got lives outside of Duran.
But music,
as well.
music for artists, especially artists of your stature, it's not something you want to do. Music is something you need to do. It's
more
an
like
integral part of you.
You do, actually.
Right.
It's not need to. You just do it. You just do it because you do it. And it's not as though something takes it away. You just do it when you do it. And
has that changed over the years?
Well, I was thinking yesterday, I went down into the banking area of London and I was looking up at some of those huge skyscrapers that have gone up. I don't think they were there the last time I was there. And I was thinking, wow, somebody built those, like an architect built those. I mean, he didn't physically. He had a huge team of thousands of people. And, essentially what we do with our shows, we're sort of building skyscrapers. I mean, it's a 2-hour, it's not a physical thing. It's a 2-hour sonic skyscraper. That's what we're doing. And I can't do that alone. I could do that with him.
Yeah.
And we can do it with Nick. and we can do it with Rog, and then we bring in a team of people that help us realize that, and it's a 2-hour temporary skyscraper, and it's also a church.
Yeah. It's a cathedral.
Yeah, it is. And that for me is what drives me. And I think that's almost the unifier, because we love to write songs, we love to go into the studio. There's lots of things that we love, but what we most love to do is we love to bring the church to the people, and we love it when the lights go down. For me, that's what makes life worth living, is cue lights.
What part does Nile Rogers play in the skyline?
Well,
if you're thinking of the towers that you are building, where is he in the skyline of Duran?
Well, actually, he's in a lot of the buildings that we've made, and he's very much. Sometimes you see him right at the top, and other times he's in the foundation as well. I love working with Nile Rogers. It's not just for his musicality, which we'll talk about in a second, but for his wonderful spirit. He's a warm, affectionate, positive, optimistic man, and he loves music. When we wrote Black Moonlight with him, he came in the studio. We had 2 days to write this song. That was all we had. We were up at a studio in Willesden Green. And he came in.
Got off the plane from Hawaii.
Yeah, got off the plane from Hawaii. We chatted for 10 minutes, and then he gets the guitar. I said, "Come on." So and John gets his bass. They start playing this kind of descending chord riff thing, which I suddenly started hearing some melody in. So I started singing something that goes with it, and suddenly after 5 minutes of that, Niall goes, "That's it. That's the chorus." And we're going like, "What? We've only just started. We need to kind of put a bit more time in, don't we?" And he's going, "No." And he says, "No." He says, "Mate, sometimes the first idea can be the best idea. It can be the idea that really works. Let's just follow this one through." So we did. And the song developed so quickly. It developed musically. It developed rhythmically. It developed lyrically, melodically. By the end of day one, we had the song. And day two was just about recording it and finishing it.
What has Nile Rogers told you about why he loves Duran Duran, which he has said is his second favourite band after Chic?
Well, he said we are his second band.
Yeah.
Well, we go back a long way. I mean, we were, when Duran formed, one of its main influences was Chic and the music of Chic. And not many people were saying that at that time. People were burning disco records.
That's right.
Duran Duran.
It's all about Sex Pistols.
Well, we loved the Sex Pistols and Chic equally. Yeah. I think it was like the Duran Duran and Danny Baker. That was it. They were the only people in this country that had equal love for punk and disco. And I think and we would drop them every chance we got. So when we met Nile for the first time, which was backstage at a show we played with Blondie in New Jersey in '82. Nile was like, I've heard you. I mean, it was very important to him that a young English band was dropping Chic as an influence at that time, because nobody was really doing it. And then, and then that friendship. I mean, like, to know Nile is to love him. He's just, you want to be friends with him. And he's a very generous man on every level.
Because of the change in taste at that point, do you think that he was feeling unloved?
Well, you'd have to ask his therapist.
Yeah, I don't think that's a question for us to ask.
But yeah, I mean, I would say that without doubt that those guys, Bernard and Nile in particular, I mean, like they were very driven. They were extraordinary musicians. They didn't understand why they were so disrespected in, shall we say, serious music circles, that they were being, because they were. I mean, disco music, whether you picked up The Enemy or you picked up Rolling Stone or something like that, they were not getting the love. Disco was not getting the love. And look at us now. What are we dancing to now?
Know, right.
What's lasted?
Hang on, that kind of disco sucks thing. It was only really 78 and 79.
Yeah,
and
right.
then Nile, for one, really kind of reinvented himself and came back as the producer of rock bands.
And Madonna.
Madonna, but in excess.
Yes,
Bowie. Yeah. Those artists, and us, and Duran Duran.
But the reason I asked that question, because Mark Ronson once said to you guys, "Stop being ashamed of yourselves," right? Like, embrace the fact that you have influenced so much music. And I wonder if there's a parallel later on between how Nile must have felt at that point. Maybe you're right, only for 2 years, but also how you felt, and you actually learned to embrace the art that you had created, the music that you created.
Well, we heard the full-on guitar, Nile Rogers, lead guitarist of Chic, when we made Notorious. He sort of brought it to the Reflex when he remixed that, but when we made Notorious in 85, was it 85, then you had that absolute guitar, funky guitar god on the record.
I don't think you can underestimate his importance in relation to us, or importance in relation to music. He's a dying breed, really. I mean, he works from his guitar, he works from the notes, he knows his way around the fretboard, really like maybe a dozen living musicians. And he can, and we learned quite early on, he can score strings, he can score horns, he can find the parts of the backing vocalists to play holding his guitar. I mean, there's Quincy Jones, but even Quincy wasn't a musician in that way. He's really extraordinary. And what he's done, I mean, particularly since he had cancer, I mean, Nile has doubled down, tripled, quadrupled down on music.
Yeah.
You see him working every day of the year.
Yeah.
He's just not into retiring. He's just into creation. He's into bringing the love to the stages around the world. He's just,
A friend of mine runs a record label, and he said, it's a major label, and he said, every time you have a hit record, it's a miracle. He said, I'm in the miracle business.
Yeah.
Because the amount of music that's released every year, and you've had so many miracles.
68,000 releases per week.
I'll tell you a funny story about this, actually. So a couple of months ago, somebody had suggested that I get onto ChatGPT. Right? Oh, you've got to check out this AI. You've got to check it out. Go and sign up to ChatGPT. And I signed on. And I spent a day talking to ChatGPT about art, right, and how to make art, and were there any shortcuts? and it was kind of funny. It was like having a therapist in the room with me. I won't say I learnt anything per se, but it was quite an enjoyable afternoon. And my wife comes home, and I said, oh, look what I've been doing. I've been having this conversation. She goes, ask it how to write a pop song. And I said, that's ridiculous. God, that's just so typical that you're trying to minimize what we do. and I was like, fine. So she goes, she asks ChatGPT, how do you write a pop song? First word out of its mouth was, writing a pop song is a very difficult thing to do. There are a lot of requirements. There are a lot of things required for a song to become successful. And it went on to list all of these things, like right up to and you need a video, and you need to make sure that the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And does the lyric connect with people? I mean, and she was like, oh, it is quite difficult, isn't it? So to your point that it is a miracle, to some degree it is. When you can get something off the ground, out of your head, and 3 minutes of recording, what is it, tape or whatever it is, that connects with people around the world. Whoa.
How do you resist the urge within yourselves once you've had hit records to go, right, how do I replicate that? Or is that something comes from the label?
We went through that phase.
Yeah, we
did
did
went
that.
through-
We
right,
did that.
okay.
I think with Notorious, there was a song on Notorious called Matter of Feeling, which was a very, very obvious attempt on our part to rewrite Save a Prayer. And it just didn't work. Except in Brazil, where it's a massive hit, by the way.
Good. Yeah. It's good to know.
Yeah, really.
And that's because there are so many factors at play, and you just can't reproduce them. You just on any given day. I mean, I guess it's like a football team, right? I mean, everybody shows up with their best game, hopefully, but you just can't control the weather. You can't control. There are so many things that are going to influence the decisions. There's thousands of decisions that get made.
And also one of the factors that comes through in music is the excitement that inspiration and spontaneity gives to you when you're writing it and ends up on the record. You can hear it. You can hear that. So if you're trying to rewrite something, you don't get any of that. So you lose that whole aspect of it, and it's flat in comparison.
I mean, look, I think there are writers, there are songwriters like the Brill Building songwriters, Goffin and King, for instance, Stock Aitken and Waterman, that were consciously writing pop songs. They weren't trying to express any inner, we're also trying to express something that's going on with us. We're trying to, every time we write a song, we're thinking about the architecture of the sound of the band and all of that. I think there are songwriters that can replicate, that can, Ashford and Simpson, it's like how many times, you've got a formula. There is a formulaic songwriting can work. It works for Andrew Lloyd Webber,
It don't work for us.
No.
Right.
It just don't work for us.
Billie Eilish, Bury a Friend. Amazing that you decided to choose that. Why?
Well, John, you brought it to the table.
She's
Nick
an
and I had a
extraordinary
conversation.
artist, isn't she?
Nick and I had a conversation about that one, actually. And it ended with me saying, let me have a go. Let me see what I was in Los Angeles. He was in London. And I said, let me have a go. I've got an idea, and we'd seen Billie. We'd played with her in Austin, Texas, hadn't we? And, the thing about that particular song is it's very condensed. There's essentially a bass, a drum and a voice.
And a lot of voice.
I knew we had to do it very differently, and I just thought it's an epic, and I imagined doing it live. It was done there was a second phase of songs that we did for the album. And I just thought, how would I want it? I mean, how would, if we were playing Wembley or we were playing, an arena somewhere, how would we want this song to sort of roll out, And you've already got, it's very surprising. Somebody said to me recently, what's the key to a marriage, and surviving? And they said, surprising, keep it surprising, and I think with us as well, not only with each other, but with our audience, you've got to keep surprising them, because once they think they've got you, it's like, what's there for you, so this one, I think we all felt, oh, that'd be cheeky. That'd be a bit audacious even, if we were to do that.
Right. Audacious is an interesting word because it's trying to get the balance right, I guess, as an artist because I came to see you at Ushuaia in Ibiza earlier on with Pete Tong was DJing the bus, and it was extraordinary in the hotel. There were people who'd flown from all over the world to be there. Yeah. So these people have been with you from the very start. But of course, it's Ushuaia in Ibiza, so there's an entirely new audience there as well. So.
But it was also don't forget that was the very first show after we'd made Future Past.
That's true, right?
So it was the first show. It was the opening.
But that was
show.
an album that went top 5 in the UK, right? Yeah. It was like your highest chart position in 17 years. It's extraordinary that you came back and did that, right? It's a big smile on your face.
I mean, I'm still
well done, you.
I'm still smiling.
It's all you, John.
I'm big on Audacity.
Yes,
Audacity goes a long way.
But what about the risk of alienating those people who've been with you from the start?
Doesn't work no.
Well,
right.
We did release an album in 2005, or was it 2005, called Red Carpet Massacre?
Yes,
which we made with Timbaland, Justin Timberlake, and Nate Hills. Danger. And I think we pushed the fans too far. They just didn't seem to warm to that. Some people love that record, but there seemed to be an outcry from our fans saying, this is not what we want from Duran. And because it really didn't connect with our hardcore, we didn't get the crucial mass to get it on the radio, to get it placed, because you need your fan base to get you that initial foothold, and it didn't work with that album.
But books and people aren't talking about the music that was made because it was made because of the risk of alienating the audience. I mean, I think you've got to. I think the best work is that where the whether it's the musicians have got the confidence to extend their vision, to broaden their vision, and and really, to be honest, not really think outside of the room. Not really think about what are people going to think of this.
You can't.
It's like the best things we've done. It's been in the room, and we finished it in the room, and we've been like, we love this. I think one of our, if there's a formula for us, it's like we've always thought there's 5 of us. We've got fairly broad tastes in music between us. If something lands for all of us, if we're all feeling pretty good about it, then we know that there's going to be a few people out there that are going to like it as well. You know, we're a pretty good litmus test of music lovers out there.
But you're still excited by new music. I love the fact you like Fontaine's DC, for instance.
Oh, God.
It's a great band, right? So you're constantly, like Elton is actually, isn't he? He's like, you're constantly absorbing that.
Yeah.
There's no sense that you're just constantly looking in the past. You're not.
No, but I think it's very easy to get into a state where you're only listening to the music you're working on, or what got you into a band in the first place.
Right, yeah.
And that did happen to me. And it was my daughter who got me out of it. And that's when I started making a radio show.
Oh, for serious?
And it was during lockdown, and I was funny enough. I came down, and she had Radio 6 on, and I said, "Oh no, I'm having breakfast. I need to have radio. I need to have the Today Show on." And she said, "Dad, call yourself a musician. You don't even like music, especially new music." And I thought, wow, oh God, actually, yeah. And I thought about it, and so I said to her, "Come on, look, start me off. Just start me off with some current stuff, and I'll take it from there." So she started me off, and suddenly I found this incredible reservoir of so big you will never be able to experience it all. You will never. I was thirsty, but you could not drink all of this stuff.
Do you remember where it started? Do you remember what was on that playlist?
The first one, Thundercat.
Right, okay.
Thundercat, Sonny Colon.
That's amazing.
Well, yeah, people, a lot of people,
and,
a lot of names.
And John, was similar?
Yeah, I've taken a different journey the last few years, actually. Okay. I always prided myself on being hip, and what was going on, and I was pretty good for a few years.
Absolutely.
And then I found, as a bassist, I a lot of contemporary music I wasn't hearing, like the music that I was liking, like the Ye album, Yeezus album, Random Access Memories, I'm hearing sampled sounds, and I'm like, where's the bassist in this, and I've really gone down the classical, I've gone down that, and I find, I also, the music that I like to listen to when I'm not working, or when I'm not working myself up, I like to listen to classical music. I like to hear
contemporary classical, Max Richter.
No.
Old
I
school.
mean, the thing I love it, and I thank Record Review, that Saturday morning show with Andrew.
Radio 3.
I love that show. I've learned so much about music from that show, and how every week they choose one piece and they compare different recordings, and how much nuance and how much variation there is in pre-recording work. Because once people started recording on tape, whether it was Howlin' Wolf or Led Zeppelin, that's the version, right? Nobody listens to another version of Stairway to Heaven. Right. But Beethoven never got to record his symphonies, so it's all interpretation. And so that puts a different kind of power in the conductor, in the musicians, and in the recording engineers. And, and I started doing this at a time when actually going back and vintage instruments were becoming the thing, and smaller ensembles. Whereas from what I understand, the 70s and the 80s was all about these huge orchestras, Herbert von Karajan, and these, huge sounds. And more recently, the last 10 years, it's been about smaller sounds and going for a more authentic sense of what it really would have been like. Right. And I found that very interesting.
That's extraordinary.
But I think that works with us as well, by the way. That just that thing, the thing about the massive sounds as opposed to the close thing, the smaller sounds, because I think you get the power of intimacy with the smaller sounds, and I think it works with bands as much as with orchestras.
Yeah.
Simon, just tell us about the process of recording Supernature, a song that was originally a year before you guys formed, but what an incredible song to disappear into, and also incredibly prescient lyrics.
Yes,
written so
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was getting off on was getting off on the disco-ness of it, and I don't know. I felt I was channeling Grace Jones a little bit in my approach to the vocal. I kept thinking, how would Grace do it? How would Grace do it? How would Grace do it?
Have you ever had a night out with Grace
Oh
Jones?
God, yes.
I can imagine that must be one of the most powerful.
Oh, she's very good fun, but it can get dangerous. It can get bad for your health.
It's definitely a night out where you have to call an end to the night, isn't it? Because
I had a night out with her once, and it started before we'd even left Heathrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, we were on a flight to New York, and it started at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I think it finished at about 5 a.m. the following day. Yeah, but we don't do that.
That must have made for an interesting flight. I can remember the flight attendants earned their money that day. I can imagine.
It went ever so quickly.
There's a column of your lives which is full of extraordinary achievements, 100 million records, Grammys, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, etc., etc. If there's a column, that says things I'm still insecure about, what would be in that column?
I'm not sure I want to talk about this.
Okay. Right. Well, that's interesting in itself.
Yeah.
Because you channel that through music.
Yeah, I don't. It's not something personally that I want to examine. I mean, we've all got it. We've all got things that we don't like about ourselves and about.
But everyone thinks the success. Everyone who is a spectator to success thinks that once you have it, it's all good.
Right, I see what you're saying.
So, so I remember interviewing Eddie Hearn, and he said something about.
Well, I'm quite happy for people to keep to maintain that belief.
Right. Okay. So then if it wasn't insecurities, but it was things I still want to achieve, things I still feel like I haven't achieved,
I think
then what would that be?
Glastonbury.
Well, you might want to talk about insecurity.
Well, I just think that they are part of what keep you moving. You know, I mean, if you want to reach a state, and I don't believe Simon's not saying he doesn't have.
Of course he's not.
He's just saying he doesn't want to talk about it.
And it's rightly so.
You know,
That's
you reach
his right.
a state of sort of smug self-satisfaction. What gets you going?
Right.
You know, there's got to be that. And I think most artists, have that nagging self-doubt. You know, I think overachievers generally, are coming from a place where they, maybe mommy didn't love them quite enough or in the way in which they wanted to be loved. And it's in the very, very simple programming, or simple, very complex programming that when we were children. I mean, different to Simon, I've raised 2 stepchildren, and a blended family was really bloody difficult, and there was a lot less, it was a different kind of approach. There wasn't the kind of certainty that you can have when you're dealing with your own children, and that came at a time in my life where I really should have been very comfortable about who I was and what I'd done with my life, and this was sort of in my 30s. I think anybody that's gotten into that will know that can be quite a challenging area of, you think it's going to be, I mean, listen, raising kids, to some degree, it's about control and release, isn't it? Control and release.
And
but
try not to mess them up.
But then when you've got, the other parent,
there,
it's tricky.
Yeah, that is.
Did you well believe it?
Through those challenges, what role did music play? Because presumably what you're saying, and please tell me if I'm wrong here, is that whatever insecurities existed before, that experience of a blended family may have amplified some of those and that kind of uncertainty at a time where perhaps you should have felt more certain about
music's always been, it's been my religion. It's my religion, So quite early on, I learned what music could do for me. And it was like knowing that there was this power, this fucking superpower that existed out there that I could use when needed. It's an awesome thing to know that exists. So, music's always been there, as a as a medication, as some kind of an assist, it's so yes, music, I mean, it's never stopped being super important.
So Simon, what's in the things yet to achieve column? Not the insecurities
Glastonbury.
Yes.
I want to play Glastonbury. I don't
He
want to go.
wants to play Glastonbury.
I don't want to
He
go.
should be able to play
I don't want to
Glastonbury.
go as a punter, but I want Duran to get the right slot. Anyway, that's a conversation that we shouldn't really have on the air.
Well, you've said it before. I mean, you've been
No, but
it's.
I'd love to do it, but I'm definitely not going to go as a punter until after we've played.
Is it what Elton did, or is it that Sunday afternoon?
No, I do.
Where do you feel?
I don't. I'd like a nighttime slot, to be honest with you, and it's got to be on the Pyramid stage.
Right. And who would you bring out, or would you keep it the band?
Oh, we haven't got there yet.
I know what Wendy's saying, our manager. She's saying, well, we'll bring out X, Y, and Z, won't we? Won't we, Wendy?
Yeah.
Well, you'd have to bring Nile with you. You'd have to bring Nile out.
Yes.
Maybe
Mark. Yeah. Okay.
And my granny.
What else? There must be something else to achieve. I mean,
Yes.
I think I would like to. I'd love to play in India. That's one of the things.
India would
I
love
did
to have
want
you.
to play in China, but I don't think that's really an option these days.
You
is
know,
it?
the thing is, so it's just because you've done it once doesn't mean you might not want to do it again, you know. And obviously, you know, we've ticked a lot of boxes in our lives, you know.
God.
But it doesn't mean you don't want to do them again,
Yeah.
you know, and do them from the perspective of a 60-year-old guy.
Yeah, it's
you know,
different.
so it's not all about finding new things that we can do that we've never done before.
Right.
You know, a lot of it is about wow, can we do that again? I mean, this new album's kind of interesting because it's made of different building blocks to what our albums are usually made of. You know, the last new album we did was called Future Past, and it was very much like it was 16 songs of like where we are at right now. You know, and we tried to invest it with as much of our own, you know-how and whatnot and this and that and make a masterpiece out of it, whatever. This album is so different in that it's made out of, it's got 7 songs by artists that are so meaningful to us. It's got songs from our early years that have been kind of repurposed. And it's got 3 songs from what, you know, most recent. And it's made for a very, very different experience. So we can actually look at this album and go, wow, we've never done anything like that before. Yeah. And, you know, you couldn't see it coming. You know, a lot of the time you've just got to be open. Yeah. You've got to get out of bed in the morning, say yes. I'm such a no sayer. I so say no to almost everything I get asked and change my mind half an hour later. You know, I think saying
Simon's learned to deal with it.
No, I'm just stuck on this one thing. I did have a conversation with somebody some time ago, and this person said to me, Simon, you have done the same thing for 40 years. It must be so boring.
What? How did you respond to that?
I just said, you haven't got a clue.
I mean,
you've lived 100 lifetimes.
Been anything but boring.
I mean, I love
just that
this
one
is somebody.
flight with
No,
Grace
this
Jones.
is somebody who's like they're like an entrepreneur, and they think that, you know, but they do the same thing really. They just put money in different things.
Yeah, we were talking about the Beckham documentary, which we love. I mean, I just think it's just
really
so...
Why? Why did you love?
Well, he's amazing.
Yeah,
he is amazing.
And she's amazing.
And she's amazing.
Fantastic.
But you know what he went through. I mean, his family ethic. You know how his father trained him. That they had 1,300 videos of him playing games as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, what went into him? You know, that passion, that sort of that
work
parental
ethic.
drive.
Yeah.
But what I loved in the very end, when you know, he's sort of practicing with Cruz, I guess, who's a soccer player, and they're bouncing the ball around.
No spoilers.
I know. The director sort of says to him, "So, you know, this is like full circle, David. You know." He's like, "Yeah, I guess so." You go, you know, you ready to sort of hand over the
baton?
Yes. And he's like, no, I'm not ready to do that yet. You know, and it's like, that's where you draw the line. You know, he's not ready to not be the guy, you know, and I think that you want to just be the guy for as long as you can be the guy.
You're still the guys, right?
We're the guys.
40 years on, more than 40 years on.
We
But
still
like
refer to each other as the boys.
2 years ago, a top 3 album. Do you think there's a difference between that kind of fame that he experienced and the kind of fame you experienced? Or do you
Not
think
really.
it's the same? Right.
I think very similar. I think, ultimately we're in the business of entertainment.
Yeah.
In the same way as a restaurateur is, by the way.
Yeah.
It's all entertainment. We're providing a service.
Teamwork.
Giving people good feelings.
It's a bit interesting, isn't it, that when he was said by some to have let down his country,
right.
and the vitriol and the hate that he,
Yeah.
you
I
probably...
actually felt a lot of shame over that. I felt shame.
I wrote him a letter and saying don't take it, don't let it get you down.
At that time?
Yeah. Me and Yasmin wrote him a letter.
Because I got caught up
and
in
sent it to Manchester United.
Brilliant.
Do you know if he ever read it?
I have no idea.
That's amazing that you did that. What compelled you to do that at the time? Because it's interesting what John said he was ashamed.
I thought it was so ridiculously stupid of everybody to think that it was just that one thing that got us knocked out of the World Cup. It's just ridiculous. And to put all that... Because when a nation gets knocked out of the World Cup, there is a national kind of angst and a national depression. And to focus that all onto one single person is wrong. Should not have happened. It was completely wrong. And I knew right when it was happening that it was wrong. And that's when we wrote the letter, right then.
But what everybody was doing, unknowingly, was that they were priming him to win the treble 9 months later.
Yeah.
You've travelled the world. You've experienced through music so many different cultures and ideas. What do you love about being from here, British? Because you've seen so much of the world, and because that's a difficult relationship that we have.
I think you kind of grow up just accepting who you are, and part of your idea of yourself is your nationality. For me, it's the language that I listen to. I love the way that English is spoken by the British.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born in 1960, so it was on the cusp of a really remarkable decade for Britain. It was probably the most confident decade that Britain has ever had as a nation. And, so I never questioned, I didn't question culturally, where I was. It was just like the cars were the best, the birds were the best, the music was the best, everything about it. So by the time I became a teenager, and we had David Bowie and we had Queen and we
Roxy
had Rod
music,
and all of this, and then whatever was going on politically with all the strikes and all of that, the Sex Pistols came along and sorted it all out. I mean, British music, from 62, I would say, to the end of the 70s has been, unparalleled in its power and its ability to change minds.
I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, of course.
What's the best word in the English language?
Oh, obsequious.
Right.
Nick would like that one.
Ask me the same question.
What is the best word in the English language?
In it.
Is that in the dictionary?
Because that brings everybody together.
In it.
It's good, isn't it? I-double-N-I-T.
Let's go down the pub, innit?
It's such a classic. It's quite a classic Asian end of a sentence as well, but it goes across so many different...
It's what modern Britain is all about.
I love that. Trust me, it'd be really pretentious and say obsequious. But
we're reaching out. We're reaching out to each other. We're holding hands. It's like between...
We're running out of time. I so enjoy talking to you. My gosh, I could do this all day, but I know you can't. Danse Macabre... I'd be interested to know how your relationship with the night has changed over the years. Because artists, as they're younger, live in a twilight world.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
But then families...
I remember when we started recording, there was a band called Classics Nouveau out at the same time, and they had a record out. It was called Night People. And it had a clock, and it had from 8 in the evening until 2 in the morning. And we just thought that was so... hilarious because we were staying up till 7 in the morning.
That's a very interesting question, and actually could be a thesis and a book. And it's one of those things that, in order to get here now, you've got to disprove. There was a period where I remember thinking, what my problem is? I'm saying this to myself. You don't spend enough time up late at night anymore. You don't spend enough time at clubs. You don't spend enough time in the studio after midnight. blah, blah, blah. You have to be able to take something like that and disprove it.
Yeah, that must have been about 1989.
No, I mean,
More
it was probably more recently, but we, because we're in it together, we're able to engineer the circumstances so that we can, create that. We understand what happens after dark in a studio. We've all been there, and you were absolutely right to point that out. But, you're not going to do it at the expense of everything else, are you? So you've got to figure out how you can create that, somehow engineer that moment, but not actually have to be at the studio at 3 o'clock in the morning. Because I don't want to be at the studio at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No,
but I do want the magic, and I do understand what can happen at 3 o'clock in the morning.
But I also want sunshine in my life, as well as nighttime.
No,
I'm not
100%.
prepared to. I'm just not willing to give up either of them.
But then, is it a myth that the most creative times do happen in the twilight hours, or is it? It's not a myth. It's a reality when you're younger.
It's a myth. It's like you need to be off your face. It's like you need to be on opium or something to be truly creative.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
It's a myth.
Right. And that's something you've just discovered with age.
Well, we've written great songs in the middle of the afternoon. And I'm talking. We and Nick started Hungry Like the Wolf at 11 o'clock in the morning, and we got the main body of the chorus at that time. So I think that just disproves it completely. Yeah. There are times when you're hanging out in the studio and you've got to stay late because you can't let go, because if you walk out, somebody else is going to lay down a whole load of stuff that you have no control over, and you can't voice your opinion. And when you come in the morning and you don't like it, you can't say anything because you weren't there when it went down, and you should have been, because then you could have said, maybe that's not quite right, So you do have to pay attention, and you do have to be in attendance.
It's a very fantastical world that you get to enter if you're a pop star musician in the rock business, and like you say, it's you get to travel, you get to work all over. It's a very, very unusual kind of world, and it's remarkable and amazing. But as you get older, you realize you're almost like clawing onto normality.
Yeah.
Normalcy.
Yeah.
And you need as much of that as you can possibly get. And then you have to figure out a way of getting them to exist side by side. It's quite weird, actually. All the things that you didn't want when you were 19, after doing this for God knows how many years, that's what you want, because I don't know, it's just this value thing. And so, and I think it's been one of the most great things about working with each other together through this process has been, understanding those kinds of things as we've gotten older, understanding he needs this, and I need that, and respecting that, and saying, okay, I mean, we're very good at that. We're very good at saying, okay, you know what, I can respect that. You need to work like that. Yeah. Let's make it happen.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Lastly, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you, because I was a little Asian kid in an environment growing up where no one looked like me, and you made a video in Sri Lanka, which is where my family are from, and it was the first time ever that a pop music, which was a huge record, showed parts of Sri Lanka I'd visited, and it made me feel, this little brown kid, seen. Really weird experience. And
thank you for that.
40 years later, I've always wanted to meet you and thank you for that, because it had such a profound effect on my ability to be able to tell kids around me, this is where we're from.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful place it is.
It is a beautiful place.
Bless you.
It is a beautiful place. Simon, John, thank you so much.
Thank you.